Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gerald Eisman. I'm a member of the advisory committee for the festival, and my duty is to give you a happy welcome here to the first day of the Cheltenham Literature Festival and to introduce our special guest. George Orwell, as you all know, is part of our lives. He may be dead, but the millions who watch Big Brother around the world may not identify him with that TV show, or even Room 101. But as you know, he is the genius who created the monster Big Brother in his novel 1984. They may not know too, those who watch TV, that the prophetic phrase, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, comes from Animal Farm. And two, it was Orwell whose mighty pen created the catchphrase Cold War and much else in the worrying world that we inhabit today, which is something that was really equals what Orwell was writing about. In an earlier life, I lived and worked in Hampstead, where George Orwell wrote his first novel, Pete the Aspidistra Flying. And he did so while he was working at a local bookshop, and it was in Hampstead he met his first wife while he was living there. I played a part too in putting a plaque up at the entrance of what was once Book Lovers' Corner, and even persuaded Orwell's second wife, Sonia, to come down and unveil it. I then discovered when I moved to Marlborough, this is serendipity, that Peter Davison was a near neighbour of mine, and he, of course, is the masterful editor of the Orwell diaries and the Orwell letters, put together, you'd be surprised to know, in a period of just 14 months, a somewhat miraculous task by a man who's now 85. He knows every nuance about, or almost every nuance about the life of George Orwell, and so I shall stand down and leave you to listen to Peter Davison.
Thank you, Gerald, and thank you all for coming. It's very good of you. I'm frankly amazed to see so many people so the draw of Orwell, not me. The dream of a deluxe edition of George Orwell's works and the nightmare of bringing it into effect. I'm going to talk about three aspects of Orwell publication. First of all, the production of Orwell's 9 books, in theory and in practice. Secondly, I want to touch on some aspects of Animal Farm in 1984, I hope that some of which might be unfamiliar to you. And thirdly, the evolution of the 11 volumes of essays and letters, which was the books made up the 20-volume edition. There we are. I've written altogether I've written 114 books, or edited 114 books, and 29 of them have been devoted to Orwell in 29 years. Some 12,000 pages. The major work is the 20-volume complete works of George Orwell. And those were done at a time when one didn't have the access to a PC or Google, and except for the indexes, everything had to be typed. It was done without any financial support from quangos, universities, grants of any kind, all wholly self-financed whilst I was working, earning a living. How did it come about? On the 8th of September 1981, Tom Rosenthal, then the boss of Secker and Warburg in Poland Street, hence the references to Poland Street, told me he was to publish a deluxe edition of the 9 books. I thought at the time a deluxe edition of Down and Out in Paris in London sounded a little odd, but there you are. These were to celebrate the year 1984, unusual celebration. We think of authors' births, deaths, and so forth, but in the case of Orwell, they celebrated 1984. And I was asked to check the texts. I was a bibliographer, even more of a hack than Johnson and the writers of dictionaries. That meant a word-for-word comparison of all the 9 books with the extant manuscripts and books. Some 50 different things had to be compared word for word. I had 9 months to deliver the 9 books in corrected versions to Poland Street, and was paid £100 per volume. And my wife, by my side, said, ask for more. So I quickly said, and if I get them all in on time, perhaps you'll round this up to £1,000. And I should have realised when Tom hastily and rapidly said, yes, that'll be fine, what I was taking on. I did deliver them all in June 1982, and was then asked to prepare an edition of the manuscript of 1984, and to find anything not included in the 4-volume selection by Sonia Orwell and Ian Angus. Progress on the 9 volumes in Poland Street was very, very slow. Proof came intermittently and were full of errors, not helped by the fact that the very distinguished literary editor, greatly admired by some, John Blackwell, took it upon himself to rewrite Orwell whenever he thought Orwell had got it wrong. All 9 books were due in the shops in July 1984. None were. Tom left Poland Street. Activity in 1985 comprised solely the abandoning of the idea of the deluxe edition, and at the very end of the year, in December, my being called to Poland Street to be asked by the then head of the Second Warburg why I had not returned the proofs. Well, of course, I had returned the proofs, and when I'd made that quite plain, we had to search the building to find them. They were eventually found on John Blackwell's desk, covered in coffee stains and wine stains, and even with the skiing holiday schedule written on them. They'd lain there for 2 years and had never been returned to the printer. It was decided to bring out the 9 books in 3 sets of 3 over 18 months.